but that President Biden's package could generate enough growth to restore full employment by next year.
We have 10 million people unemployed. Another 2 million are working part-time. So we're in a deep hole with respect to the job market and a long way to dig out.
Yellen speaking Sunday on CBS's Face the Nation. Republican senators argue that Biden's proposal is too expensive. And New York City vaccines are having a slow rollout, with the snow Sunday causing many appointment cancellations.
As this storm rolls in, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is announcing that there will be even more cancellations for vaccine appointments. Now, 976,000 vaccination doses have already been administered in the city, but of course, not without some distribution problems. So last week, Councilmember Mark Traeger tweeted a video of a vaccine site in Coney Island that did not have any patients inside. Traeger calling out the city, saying that he was told the center didn't update its website for available appointments.
I already knew that we had a shortage of supply in the city, but what I also witnessed was a shortage of urgency and a shortage of getting this right.
The city health department responding, telling Fox, quote, sites were open that day to accommodate a limited number of rescheduled appointments from the prior week.
Fox's Alex Hogan. America is listening to Fox News.
Half a day. This is Alicia Blas from Security Title, reminding you that your 2020 property taxes are now due and payable. You may not know that you can pay your taxes online at pay.guam.gov. All you have to do is follow these simple steps. Register, log in, get a PIN, and pay. If you purchased a property after March 2nd, 2020, you will likely not receive a tax bill in your name, but you will still owe the tax. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
The vaccine is officially here, and we aren't just talking about the COVID vaccine, but a financial vaccine at Bank Pacific. We may not be doctors, but we can help you with your financial health. Whether to take advantage of today's crazy low rates, or just a local bank that has your back. At Bank Pacific, we want to help make 2021 your best year yet. Because for 66 years, where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC.
Chicago schools went remote nearly a year ago as Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot announced Sunday a preliminary agreement with the teachers union over COVID-19 safety protocols. It includes more vaccinations for teachers and pushes back the start of in-person classes. The first wave could start this week, but the battle continues for schools in other cities across the country.
Last week, the newly named CDC director said that data suggests that schools can safely reopen and that vaccinations, mass vaccinations, are not a requirement for getting kids back into the classroom. That language was later walked back, but on Friday, the White House is also trying to walk a fine line in establishing President Biden's position.
The president is absolutely committed to reopening schools. He wants them not just to reopen, but to stay open. And he wants to do that in a safe way. And we're going to rely on CDC guidance, which again is not officially out yet, to determine the best way to do it.
Now, during the campaign, President Biden vowed to be the most pro-union president he could be. He also pledged to reopen most of the nation's kindergarten through 8 schools within his first 100 days in office. The White House insists that it's still possible, but they need more money through a stimulus package to get the job done.
Fox's Mark Meredith. And a British official says no to immunity passports for people who have been given the COVID-19 vaccine and want to travel.
Vaccines Minister Nadeem Zahawi saying Sunday that while the country is not considering issuing the so-called immunity passports for those vaccinated, an individual who's been vaccinated could ask their doctor for written proof of their vaccine status if they need to travel. Zahawi explaining that vaccine passports would be discriminatory and officials did not want getting vaccinated to be made in some way mandatory through a passport. This news comes as the UK says they're moving fast to try and meet their target of giving all people over 70, as well as frontline healthcare workers, their first dose of the vaccine by February 15th. Other countries, including Greece, have said they'll waive quarantine requirements for those who have been vaccinated.
Fox's Ted Lindner. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Rolling sound, quiet, and action.
The Ray Gibson Show, starring Senator Mona Silva Tyron as the news anchor.
I'm Mona Silva Tyron, and I'll have your local news every morning. Life moves pretty fast, so stay with us to stay informed right here on The Point.
Also starring Jerry Roberts as the Better Business Training Guru.
Get out there and do something good today, like listen to us Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m., where we go extra for you.
produced by the real Joe Cruz. And your warm and intelligent host, Ray Gibson.
It's the Gibson Stream of Consciousness. All the players and all the games with cameos and calls from the most interesting people like you. We'll see and hear you right here on your talk radio superstation. This is The Point.
The Ray Gibson Show was filmed before a live Facebook audience.
Listen to The Point. Any speaker, anytime. Check us out on your FM radio at 93.3, 104.3 HD3, thepoint.gu, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and tune in. And announcing radio.com. Download the app and hear The Point. Get the latest news, sports, entertainment, and more.
On demand.
Your phone is digital. Your life is digital. And we are too. 93.3, The Point.
Featuring the latest special at Mezcla, Manopua, baked barbecue pork buns, Chinese-style barbecue pork in buttery pastry, $30 for a dozen. Call 479-2652 or 2653 to place your order. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. The only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You thought maybe I'd forget how to do that over the weekend. It's been a long weekend. 70 hours since we've last been here with our international radio listening audience, Jose. But I didn't forget how to recite the Second Amendment.
I had full confidence in your memory.
Thank you very much. Every now and then I do have a Biden moment, but not concerning the Second Amendment. Let's start out here then with Zemi Kotny. And this is what the Daily News has run today. It's a story about my parents had to wait for vaccine. And it's a story about a reporter who had some trouble getting vaccine for her mother because the vaccine was short. It's nice, maybe a nice letter to write to your cousin, but hardly editorial quality. But where did I find it? Pacific Daily News. What do you expect? Yeah, and then the Post comes along, and the Post is back to its edgy, hard-hitting self once again. And this is what the Post says today. Allegation that arrest warrants can disappear for a fee should be answered by the Guam judiciary. And the ongoing federal trial that accuses a man of running errands for former drug boss Lovelia Mendoza, another allegation surfaced Friday. This became public through the replay in federal court of a recorded conversation between an FBI agent and the defendant, Mark Mayo. Mayo alleged that he faced 2 warrants of arrest that were, quote, lifted for an under-the-table fee. Mayo told investigators that his 2018 active warrants were lifted for a price of between $600 and $2,500. Here's a quote. All I know is I had 2 warrants vacated because of the mayor, Mayo said, referring to then Jonia Mayor Jesse Blas, who has since been convicted of extortion and who was then boyfriend of Mendoza. Mendoza is the self-confessed drug boss who is acknowledged having brought methamphetamine into Guam by the pounds. Blas has been sentenced to serve time in federal prison, and Mendoza is serving the remainder of her 8-year sentence. Mayo still is on trial. Outside the federal court system, the judiciary of Guam must address this issue. The local judiciary needs to let the public know what actions it will take to clean house and who will be held accountable administratively if the allegation is true. This is a public trust issue for the judiciary. The Adult Probation Office under the Judiciary of Guam is responsible for the supervision of people who have been placed on supervised probation for various criminal offenses. Probation officers are supposed to monitor compliance by those on probation by conducting unannounced home and employment visits, home searches, and case audits. And they're supposed to apply the rules squarely to all who are on probation. It is also a public safety issue when someone is supposed to be in jail for an arrest warrant is let off the hook just because someone has connections to make the arrest warrant go away or remain buried in paperwork. We hope the federal authorities have this covered in terms of conducting further investigations. But separate and apart from the federal investigation is the judiciary's responsibility to be transparent to the public regarding what it did or will do to keep the probation office free of corruption. We can't have a community where those who can bribe their way out of arrest warrants remain free and the poor remain locked up because they don't have cash to put under the table or make connections to continue to roam the streets of Guam. Good editorial. I'm only going to pick at one part of it, and that's the last paragraph. It says, we can't have a community where those who can bribe their way out of arrest warrants remain free and the poor remain locked up. No, we don't want anybody to remain free, whether they're rich or poor or whatever. This is not a double standard issue. The answer to this is not to provide cash payments to poor people so they can bribe probation officers. That's not what this is about. Guam Daily Post. It's about having an uncorrupt judiciary. It's not about equality or equity.
That's exactly what I read too, and what you read out. And I was like, wait a second. This is not about equity for the poor.
Yeah. So, if rich people can bribe their way out, then it's just not fair if poor people can't bribe their way out just because they don't have the money to pay the bribe. It's just not right. Yeah. So, looking at this, first of all, I want to make a personal point here. I have maintained for a long, long time that the probation office should not be located in the judiciary. Probation and parole should be combined. They should be separate executive entities, separate and apart from the court. The work that probation officers and parole officers do is not the same, but it's very, very similar. And it doesn't make sense that the judiciary, and I'm out of step here again, I don't believe in veterans courts and family violence courts and tall people's courts and short people's courts and fat people's courts and skinny people's courts. I start out with a proposition that the mission of the judiciary is to provide fair and impartial, speedy resolutions to criminal and civil conflicts. That's it. All the rest of the stuff, the social justice warrior aspect of the Superior Court to me is misplaced. Those things, if we're going to do them, should be in the executive branch, not in the judicial branch. And the same with probations and paroles, because right now, the court has what is often referred to, here's a legal term, turn on the Law and Order notebook here, Jose. Here's a new legal term for you. Right now, the Supreme Court has what is called a sticky wicket. A sticky wicket. So they're supposed to sit in judgment. The Supreme Court sits in judgment of the product of the Superior Court as an appellate court, and it also has administrative authority over the whole branch. So something comes up like this, an alleged dishonesty in their probation office, which is part of the judicial branch. Who will investigate that impropriety? Somebody in the judicial branch that may compromise the judiciary's ability to provide fair trials when the wrongdoer is caught and brought to justice? It just isn't a good idea. The court should just shrink itself back down to judicial functions, and that's all. If probation had been located with the parole office outside of the court and in the executive branch, then there wouldn't be this kind of problem, because it would be the job of the police and the attorney general to do the investigation, find the wrongdoers, and prosecute them in the Superior Court. But as it is, the judiciary sits in a really awkward position. A second awkwardness for the judiciary is that when it comes to public relations, they are somewhat at a disadvantage, because we don't expect the judiciary to spend a whole lot of time talking about the stuff that goes on in the judiciary. We don't expect a press release from Judge Barcenas saying, well, today I handled a criminal trial, and by God, we found that guy guilty, and we're going to lock him up and throw... No, that isn't the way the judiciary works. The judiciary is supposed to be reserved and away from the controversy. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how they do it with this. And, of course, the Post is afraid that's exactly what they will do. They'll be reserved and distant and say, we have no comment about what was said in the federal court. Not a good idea. Now, examining the judiciary, we do have a probation office, and I suspect that there is a potential for chicanery in the probation office, because probation officers decide who is violating parole, and they file some papers to bring the violator before the court. So they use the word warrant here. Now, I'm not so sure that they know exactly what they're talking about. Warrants are issued by judges, and it's pretty hard once an arrest warrant is signed by a judge and filed. It's pretty hard to get that out from under that. But if a probation officer serves a notice of violation of parole to a parolee, probably not anywhere near as difficult. There's probably a procedure within the probation office to retract a notice of violation for a mistake or excusable neglect or whatever. So I suspect that's where the problem lies. And for the reasons I mentioned, this is not going to be easy for the judiciary to deal with. The only law enforcement capability that the Superior Court has is its own marshals. And they're really not trained for investigation. They're really not trained for much of anything except to stand around providing what's called security. In other words, if anyone acts out, the marshals can cuff them, throw them in the retaining cell down in the basement, turn them over to the cops. But I don't know that they have a vigorous internal affairs division within the Marshals Division or any kind of investigative capability at all. I would also suspect that the Supreme Court would be somewhat reluctant to call the chief of police and say, Chief, send your guys over here. We'll open all the drawers. We'll let them look at all the papers, see what you can find out. So this is a classic sticky wicket. But notwithstanding, I wonder if the Post has gotten caught up in this whole idea of the Marxist approach to government, and that's why they think, well, it's only fair if rich people can bribe their way out of a warrant. It's only fair that poor people be able to do the same thing. I'm going to give them a blue star anyhow, but I'm going to put a footnote on that blue star. It would lead you to the last paragraph of that editorial. Okay, let's see. For the Post, that is Blue Star number 240. 240 Blue Stars for the Post, 57 for the Daily News. The best Daily News editorial they've had in it recently was when they let a student write an editorial for them. Yeah, a better quality writing than some of the boilerplate they get from USA Today. Okay, so this is what I've got in my program notes. The Post ran a story about police at the airport gambling on duty. When the Post asked for details, when they asked the airport for details about gambling cops, the Post rolled snake eyes. So I fired off a FOIA to the airport. The acting SHPO, Carlotta Leon Guerrero, and Senator Nelson square off about the programmatic agreement. This is that agreement that the Naval Administration, the Naval NAVFAC, enters into with our State Historical Preservation Office, that just goes to show every time they do it that we have no say whatsoever in what happens to land on military bases. That's a joke. Where's my, yeah. You know, I mean, it is a stringent negotiation process, and oftentimes that process ties the Navy up in knots when they're trying to build something. The Vatican has been dismissed out of some child sex abuse lawsuits, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And I'll talk a little bit about the difficulty in bringing suit against the Vatican. It's not what you think it is. Lee Weber floats the idea of a police commission. Now, we all know that the way things are right now is that the governor appoints the brother-in-law of the chairman of the rules to be chief of police, and he runs the department. Lee Weber thinks that we might be better off if we had a commission. You know, how many commissions? We just need another commission, and the commission chooses the chief of police who runs all law enforcement on the island. An interesting idea. So long as we keep Joey Duenas off the commission, otherwise there'll be no transparency whatsoever. And then we have a letter to the editor from one Aguarin Iriarte, who again proves up Mark Twain's evaluation. Mark Twain was heard to say, "Youth is such a wonderful thing. It's a pity we waste it on the young." Where's the real Joe Cruz now that we need him? Yeah, that's better. There we go. All right. Yeah. The ACLU has filed for an injunction. We talked a little bit about the suit they filed. Now they're looking for a preliminary injunction. I'll get into that a little bit. And a new comedy team. You've heard of Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy, right? Rowan and Martin. I suppose there are a couple I can't even remember, or so modern I don't know them. Penn and Teller.
Dean and, what was his name? Dean Martin and...
Yeah, Martin and Lewis.
Lewis.
Yeah, Martin and Lewis. Well, we've got a new team, Sabina and Tello. Yeah. Sabina and Tello have introduced a bill that, if enacted into law, is going to put Ghostbusters out of business. So that's going to be good for a laugh. I suspect that I'm probably running the risk of being canceled right now just for mentioning Tello's name without her permission.
That's going to haunt you.
Given what I just said, this radio program's not going to have a ghost of a chance of accruing more listeners. Yeah. The Democrats have introduced a constitutional amendment that would allow an ex-president with a crappy personality to be burned at the stake. Yeah. Probably a pretty good chance that it'll pass, right? The only thing they're debating right now is what kind of stake should it be. Some of the environmental wackos have talked about, I don't care why, you shouldn't chop down a tree.
What if your president's vegan?
True enough. So, and then I've got some stuff that's been on the card for a while that I won't go into just now. Starting out with the airport versus gamblers. The A.B. Wanpat International Airport Authority has opted not to release details regarding allegations that several of its police officers had been under investigation for gambling while on the job. And here comes the obligatory quote. Because it's a personality matter, we are unable to comment, according to a statement from airport management.
It's really very sensitive information.
Now, this we are unable to comment is just wrong. And if you are in charge of media relations, you should be disciplined because you're gaslighting the public. Let's say that we're talking personnel matters, and let's say that, as Lou says, it's sensitive. You cannot be forced to release certain kinds of matters dealing with personal information in the FOIA process. But there's nothing in the FOIA law that prohibits the release of anything. I've been through that so many times. It's just a matter of reading the law and following the law. So if they wanted to say this is a personnel matter and we don't want to release anything, they'd be right. When they say it's a personality matter, we are unable to comment, wrong. And you know how it goes with credibility. If George Washington had said, it was my brother that chopped down the cherry tree, it wasn't me, he'd have never been president of the United States. He'd have never had his picture on the $1 bill. He'd have never had his statue torn down by the left because he owned slaves. Because he told a lie. So this is a lie. This is not true. And they keep doing it. Okay, airport executive manager John Kinata said he has consulted with the agency's legal counsel. Oh, that raises it another notch. And found no information that can be released to the public. Again, I don't see how that can possibly be. And we'll find out, because I whipped them off of FOIA today, and I'm not going to give them any more slack than the folks down at CCU get. Going on with the story, at least 2 senators were alerted to the allegations of gambling on the government clock using a phone application and electric payments or digital currency to place bets. Well, at least they're not handing cash around or things like that. And I suppose I could send a note to John Kinata saying, John, why don't you buy some poker chips? Make it easy on your guys. Christian Valencia, a spokesman for Senator Amanda Shelton, the chairwoman of the committee in the legislature that has oversight over the airport authority, said the senator has received information that 6 airport officers were allegedly involved. Only one of the officers won. He won big time. And the officer that lost the most money turned out to be named Karen. And that's where I got this information.
That's exactly what happened. That's not fair.
Not fair. I want my money back. Senator Shelton, can you make them give me my money back? They were really good at the game, and I didn't know how to play it. Shelton hopes to find out more in a meeting with the airport management scheduled for Thursday. Well, you can't talk to them about this. It's a personnel matter. The tip about government law enforcers gambling on the clock was also relayed anonymously. Oh, that makes it 10 times. That's much better than the one that Shelton got. Because if you really want to get people's attention, write a letter to the editor, write a letter to the director, etc. That's good. But if it's an anonymous letter, the media snaps it up like a tomcat to catnip. Relayed to Joanne Brown, who also passed on the information to Shelton. So I got to reread this. I don't see any mention of Rory in here. Oh, it's the airport. My bad.
That's a different vice.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a short break and we'll come back to Carlotta versus Nelson.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
A homeowner's policy protects much more than just your house. It also protects you against claims from someone being hurt on your property. If a visitor is injured at your place, how much are you covered for? The smart thing to do is get the answer today.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, here we go. Back into Tall Tales. I took a peek at Facebook during the break, and Rob Hawk asked whatever happened to the Bob and Ray resolution. And Jose comes back and tells him the 35th ran away from ran far away, exhibiting no courage to present it. There is a Bill 11 which enhances that resolution. And he says the hearing may be going on right now. It's scheduled to start at 4. Yeah, so
I call conspiracy.
Yeah, yeah, they know. So if you wanted to watch the hearing and listen to Tall Tales at the same time, I would not be offended. I would not get jealous that the hearing is taking away tailgaters, etc. It's an extremely important piece of work that Kress is advancing, and I think he deserves as much support as we could possibly give him. If you have time, send a little note to the chairman of the committee saying this is the way it should be, because, you know, with the way it has been, it has been the classic case. It's been Alice in Wonderland every day. We had the Humpty. Was it Humpty Dumpty? Every word, every word I use means exactly what I wanted to say. Nothing more, nothing less.
Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah, that was Lou. I never said that. Yeah.
That's right.
And anyone who would comment about the draconian nature of her executive orders was always met with the same response: off with their heads. She gave absolutely no, paid no attention to interacting with the people as she moved forward with these things, and did some incredibly stupid things, like setting up the roadblocks on Marine Corps Drive for no reason whatsoever. And then this whole thing dealing with the bars, you know, everything. If you have a bar and you want to let 50 people in there with masks on and everything to play your amusement machines, that's okay, but you can't serve alcoholic drinks because of the virus. So she has ruled over the people with executive orders as opposed to governed the island in accordance with law. And if Chris's resolution passes, she'll have to get off her high horse. And the real gloss on this is if what she wants to do is the correct thing to do and it's sensible, she shouldn't have any trouble explaining that to senators. But if it's just a do as I say, not as I do, or off with their heads, then she'll hate this. So guess how she's probably going to come down on this, right? So that's it. That's hearing is going on right now. It's supposed to have started at 4 o'clock. But I can tell you, of course, from my own experience in the legislature, one of the questions that was debated whenever we got together for things like this was the question, what time will the 4 o'clock hearing start? I drew some flack because a 4 o'clock hearing would start at 4.
Oh, you would think.
I started mine at 4. And if I was the only senator there, and we kind of cut the gab down a little bit. And I never played the game of, as senators come straggling in 15 or 20 minutes, lionizing them. Oh, and I want to stop the hearing now and take this opportunity to welcome Senator Smucka Huckowitz, who apparently doesn't have a watch, because he's so disrespectful of you and your time, he can't show up for this public hearing on time. I don't do that. I didn't do that. Okay, so next on the card, Carlotta Leon Guerrero versus Senator Nelson. Gov Guam official, military agreement had adequate public input. And again, this deals with the renegotiation of the programmatic agreement, which really gives the lie to this whole separatist rap of the military just does what they want to do and they never take our input at all. There is an actual agreement between a government of Guam official called the State Historical Preservation Officer, better known as the SHPO, and a Navy official representing the Navy in the construction aspect of what's going on here. And that agreement can be enforced. It has a lot of power. It has a lot of teeth, and I suspect that folks in the Navy who are trying to build a base are having a really rough time because they want to dig holes in the ground, build things, etc., not stop every time somebody finds a stone on the ground and tries to figure out whether it's some kind of historical relic, or they're poking around in the boonies and they find an abandoned refrigerator or an abandoned washer and have to determine what is the archaeological significance of this relic.
That was Pocket.
Yeah. So here's how the article goes. After Senator Nelson questioned whether the government of Guam's latest agreement with the military should be null and void in light of the lack of public review and consent, the State Historic Preservation Office said efforts to include public input were adequate. Nelson said they weren't. Carlotta Leon Guerrero, working out of the governor's office, substituting for Patrick Lujan, who is the SHPO, who is on active duty with the Air Guard. So Carlotta is the acting SHPO. And here's a quote from Carlotta. I think that a large degree of the people. What is a degree of the people?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Feel that the government of Guam is going to represent their interests well in complex matters, said acting State Historic Preservation Officer Carlotta Leon Guerrero. I think that there were workshops. I think there were meetings, and the senators held oversight hearings and public hearings, and there was a 30-day comment period. And then Anamita Carr, who wrote the story, of course we know where she's coming from, chimes in and says, in the 2-year negotiation process for the new agreement, there were no public workshops. There were no recurring public notices for meetings regarding the agreement. From either the Historic Preservation Office or the military, there was one oversight hearing on the agency regarding the agreement in December 2019, and there was one 30-day public comment period at the end of 2020. Now, the separatists have gotten their skivvies all bunched up because there wasn't a public hearing. And of course, we know what the function of the public hearing is, right? The function of the public hearing is for the members of the public to come in and provide testimony dealing with the issues on the table in a factual, fair, and objective approach to help the decision makers arrive at more appropriate decisions. That's the function of a public hearing. How does the public hearing turn out? It turns out to be a dog and pony show for the separatists, where they can come in with their signs. And you remember the one down at the governor's office where the two girls basically told the governor to shut up? I think one of them's name was McManus.
Oh, wow. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
So that is the real function of public hearings for these people, for the separatists to come in and put on their show. Lots of cultural Marxist type rhetoric, lots of playing on identity politics, etc., that perhaps tangentially has something to do with the issue at hand, but is more the opportunity to express the idea that we don't want the military here. We don't want anybody here. We want to separate from the United States. In the two-year agreement, as you were, the document programmatic agreement among the Commander Joint Forces Marianas, the Guam State Historic Preservation Officer, or the SHPO, regarding military training and testing on and within surrounding waters of Guam, serves to replace the programmatic agreement which expired in 2019. It outlines policies for the Guam State Historic Preservation Office and Joint Region Marianas as to how the negative impacts on the island's cultural and historic sites will be avoided or minimized during the Navy's activities not related to the buildup. Leon Guerrero, that's Carlotta, not the governor, Joint Region Marianas, and the governor signed it at the end of last year. It will last until 2025. Nelson last week called the Attorney General of Guam to weigh in, pointing to the governor's signature on the document as a reason to require legislative approval and therefore public hearings through the legislature. As of Wednesday, the Attorney General hadn't shared an official opinion on the matter. Now, I think there was a bill last time that said that for every day over 10 days that the Attorney General is late in delivering an opinion requested by the legislature, one of his fingers may be cut off. Yeah. Here's the quote. At issue is whether the agreement with the governor's signature is valid in light of a 1982 Superior Court case opining that if the governor has authority to execute federal laws applicable in Guam, then the execution of such laws becomes a subject of local application, which the Guam legislature is empowered under the Organic Act to legislate in such manners to assist the governor, according to a statement from Nelson. Do you know what the style of that 1982 case is, Jose? You know, it's who versus whom. Do you know what the style of the case is? Neither do I. Do you know what the case number of the case is? Neither do I. When this story first broke on Friday, I immediately sent a letter to Senator Nelson. Please send me a copy of the case. Would that be classified as a reasonable request?
Especially if she's citing it.
I got a note probably from a subordinate that said, this is to acknowledge your request. You know what I got in my email today? Nothing.
Zilch.
Nothing.
At least we paid somebody to acknowledge your request.
Yeah, so I was so happy that my request was acknowledged. So I was busy today. I was lucky I had a time to do some show prep because I had to fire off another FOIA to Senator Nelson's office asking for the 1982 case. Now, something just doesn't look right here. If you have the case, oftentimes the media will run it. They'll run the whole case. if you have the case, you would go beyond just identifying, well, it's a 1982 case. You'd say it's Sanchez versus Guerrero or XYZ Corporation versus J&G or something like that, right? Nothing. Just, well, there's this 1982 case, and it says. So I'm going to be very interested to see what I get back from Senator Nelson with respect to my FOIA. Now, if I weren't kind of constrained for time here, putting this show together, it's not an easy thing to do. It takes me a lot of time. I got that and my nap and my walk and all the really important parts of my life, right? But I would drive down to Senator Nelson's office and walk in and say, I demand to see the 1982 case. Because the FOIA law says you can expect a public record at any time. You don't have to wait 4 days or anything like that. But, one would think that a public official who references any kind of a document in a press release or a public statement would be happy to send that to a constituent. The constituent might actually like it and might even like you, Senator Nelson. So when you don't do that, it sends a couple of messages. You don't care about the people. You don't care about me, which is a bad mistake because I have a talk show every afternoon. Or it's not there. You don't have it. You're bluffing. Now, I want to see your whole card, Senator Nelson. Oh, you got to pay to see them cards. And then she goes on to say, requesting this legal opinion is not an effort to derail the programmatic agreement. No. But is an effort to ensure that the people of Guam are afforded a public forum for their voices to be heard on issues that concern them to as much extent as possible. This inquiry has the potential to pave a path towards ensuring legislative authority is not overstepped, like the governor has done for about a year now with this pandemic thing, and you stood back and cleared a path for her to do it. Leon Guerrero said senators have the ability to pursue further public opinion as deemed necessary. Nothing precludes her, meaning Nelson, from having a hearing every quarter for an update and bringing me, that's the Chippo, Leon Guerrero, to the meeting that's open to the public. She can hold as many public hearings and oversight hearings that she feels is necessary to get the public comment that she thinks is lacking. And I feel that the people who feel strongly about helping to shape the document, I feel they've had opportunities to come forward and help shape the document. Of course, as I explained, this has nothing to do with shaping the document. This has everything to do with a dog and pony show, a circus. So Nelson doesn't think she could get the same boost out of a circus at the legislature as if the Joint Forces Marianas held it. I went to one of those up at the Jigo Mayor's office several years ago when General Bice was still running the show here, and Melvin Leon Guerrero apparently was auditioning for a role as a rapper somewhere, and he did this rap routine. I was so embarrassed. I was really embarrassed that we behave that way in public. But anyhow, that's the way the game is played. Now here we go. Community organization Protehi Latexan, during a press conference this month, stated public opinion wasn't properly gathered and considered before finalizing the new document. While a public comment period existed, there were no efforts to make knowledge of the document, its meaning, and its effects accessible to the group who can't read. Nelson's office pointed to the same problem. So Nelson said, Nelson in a press release said, this is really a good opportunity for me to pander to Protehi Latexan. and I'm not going to let it go by. From our observations and from what we've heard and seen in our community, people feel there should be more effort given to providing easier access to provide input and to also understanding the Department of Defense terminology and plans in a more coherent way, said Tihu Lujan, Communications Director with Nelson's office. We feel there's room for improvement. And that's all they're interested in, yeah. Okay, we're coming up here for a short break, and after the break, I'm going to go to the green one and find out what another Joe wants to talk about, I suspect. Yeah, sure enough. Followed up by Frenchie. Sometimes there are no surprises in life, right? Okay, short break.
Rolling sound, quiet, and action.
The Ray Gibson Show, starring Senator Mana Silva Tyron as the news anchor.
I'm Mana Silva Tyron, and I'll have your local news every morning. Life moves pretty fast, so stay with us to stay informed right here on The Point.
Also starring Jerry Roberts as the Better Business Training Guru.
Get out there and do something good today, like listen to us Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m., where we go extra for you.
Produced by the real Joe Cruz. And your warm and intelligent host, Ray Gibson.
It's the Gibson Stream of Consciousness. All the players and all the games with cameos and calls from the most interesting people like you. We'll see and hear you right here on your talk radio superstation. This is The Point.
The Ray Gibson Show was filmed before a live Facebook audience.
Okay, Google. Hey, Siri. Hi, Bixby.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Open the Point app. Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations, check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on the App Store and Google Play, or go to thepoint.gu.
So here we go, back to Tall Tales, and I open the door to the green room, peek in, and who do I find in the green room but another Joe?
Yeah. Just a passing thought, the kebab, tijo, I don't know, is that Chamorro or Spanish for uncle? Tijo.
Well, Spanish, it would be tío.
Oh, okay.
Would be uncle. I don't know where the tío comes from.
Mm-hmm. So regarding Delina Nelson and regarding Dilo Taitukui and Sabina Paris,
the new comedy team.
Interesting. They're across the aisle. I guess you could say reaching across the aisle, but I'm not sure how much reaching there is.
Well, it's always that way with comedy teams. There's always a great contrast, right? You have Dean, a real smooth, cool guy, Dean Martin, and this goofy guy, Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
It helps to be medicated.
And you had Rowan and Martin, the same thing. Bud Abbott, very straight laced, and Lou Costello, Lauren Hardy. So you have the straight man and the comedian. So we've got Sabina Paris as the straight man. And go on.
Okay.
Well,
let Joe do the talking.
Okay. I know you're always going to make it more difficult on the Democrat, right? So regarding Donald Taitukui, sometimes she comes across as kind of, I don't know, not exactly goofy, but sometimes like you're kind of curious about where she's coming from. But you can't deny she's kind of a shrewd politician because she's getting reelected a few times now. So she knows what she's doing when it's time to do it. She brings the
I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyhow. Another Joe.
Okay.
In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
There you go. I've said this before, Bob. I can't help it. I'm a little bit of an environmental nut myself. You know, I want a safe, clean environment to live in, and clean food and water and stuff. But there's got to be a balance. There's got to be fairness. As far as impartial, I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm biased because it's where I live. So, but that's more like towards wanting to clean up like super fun projects and anything that improves the lifestyle. So having said that, I'm kind of worried because I've heard like Frenchie and others say that Sabina's a communist or socialist or one or the other, and I'm not sure. I've never heard her come out and say that she was either a communist or a socialist. And she seems very cordial. So until she comes out and says one or the other, I'm just going to say the thing that she's a liberal. And I'm trying to figure out what
cordiality. That's the touchstone. Yeah, she can't be a communist. She's cordial.
No, I don't know that. I'm cautious. Yeah. I'm cautious about it because as long as she's not an atheist. I mean, even if she was an atheist, I try to be reasonable. But I think she's an Academy girl.
If she were an atheist, you know what I'd say about her? God help her.
There you go. So, but I know she's an Academy girl, and so she's got pretty good education. And Academy girls, I think, are known to.
She's an Academy girl, therefore she's takila.
She leans to the left. I think they're known to lean to the left.
Leans to the left. Yeah, okay.
Academy girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if is it Hope Cristobal? She an Academy girl too?
I think she majored in public speaking.
I'm hearing criticism. I hear criticism about Academy being supportive of pro-choice, like from the pro-lifers. They say, oh yeah, they're the Academy nuns rather. The Academy nuns.
If Tim is listening, he might call in and chime in on Academy and pro-life, pro-choice.
The Sisters of Mercy.
I don't know. I didn't go to Academy. I was at GW. Another job. I was at GW, but I was very slow. It took most of the kids got out of GW in 3 years. It took me 8 years. I don't know what to believe with you, Kabab, because you're on the record of saying that you grew up in Wisconsin. So I did, but I came here and I taught at GW for 8 years. So it took me 8 years to get out of there.
There you go. I in regards to Lena Nelson, I think it might be more of her staffers. I think she might have new staffers. I don't know how as far as the response, I think they should have said, well, Mr. Senator Klitzkie will get back to you with the information you need, instead of just saying we acknowledge you.
How about just sending the document? Wouldn't that have been an appropriate response?
There you go, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of difficult for me, but you got to talk show. That's your bread and butter. But I tend to want to give people, and then of course you do not give the benefit of the doubt.
I never give the benefit of the doubt. Hey, I gotta go. I got Frenchie waiting on the other line.
Thank you for your time,
Okay, nice talking to you, another Joe. And we'll break for the big halftime show, and we'll come back with a bang with Frenchie. We had another caller. Is he going to call back too?
He will call back.
Okay.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Feeling good in Florida. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. Tom Brady stands atop the football world once again.
He now has more Super Bowls than any NFL franchise all time. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers knocked off the Kansas City Chiefs 31-9 Sunday as Brady captured his 7th title. The 43-year-old threw for 201 yards and 3 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette added 1 on the ground in the win. Brady was named the game's MVP as well, the 5th of his career. Tampa Bay's defense played a big part on the night, sacking Patrick Mahomes 3 times, intercepting him twice, and holding the Chiefs without a touchdown for the first time in Mahomes' career. The Super Bowl win is the 2nd in Buccaneers franchise history, the 1st since 2002. Ryan Mayer, Fox News.
Also new tonight, the Biden administration is warning Yemen's Houthi rebels against ongoing attacks against civilians just days after removing former President Trump's designation, which labeled Houthi rebels in Yemen as terrorists. The State Department is now calling on the Iran-backed rebel group to immediately stop attacks on civilians and new military operations in Yemen. Meanwhile, U.S. Representative Liz Cheney says she doesn't intend to resign after being censured by Wyoming Republicans over her vote to impeach former President Trump, and she suggests that if she were in the Senate, she'd vote to convict Trump over the Capitol riot on January 6, describing her decision as a constitutional duty.
If I were in the Senate, I would listen to the testimony. I would listen to the evidence. If you're a senator, you have a responsibility to be a juror. But I obviously believe and did then that what we already know is enough for his impeachment. What we already know does constitute the gravest violation of his oath of office by any president in the history of the country.
Cheney speaking on Fox News Sunday, it would take 17 Republicans joining all 50 Senate Democrats to convict Trump on the impeachment article, an outcome that is highly unlikely. America is listening to Fox News.
Half a day. This is Alicia Blas from Security Title, reminding you that your 2020 property taxes are now due and payable. You may not know that you can pay your taxes online at pay.guam.gov. All you have to do is follow these simple steps. Register, log in, get a PIN, and pay. If you purchased a property after March 2nd, 2020, you will likely not receive a tax bill in your name, but you will still owe the tax. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
You've heard of double mile credit card rewards? You can forget all about that. At First Hawaiian Bank, we're stepping it up. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not even 4 times. You guessed it. First Hawaiian Bank is giving you 5 times the miles. Use your First Hawaiian Bank credit card and get rewarded 5 miles for every dollar spent with qualifying purchases at grocery stores. Plus 20,000 bonus miles. Learn more at any First Hawaiian Bank branch or go to FHB.com to apply today. First Hawaiian Bank, Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC.
A peaceful protest for Black Lives Matter and Black History Month turned violent in Washington, D.C.
It started out very peaceful. Authorities in D.C. were on march with several different groups. They're trying to put it all together right now. But do want to point out this started out peacefully, according to authorities, as a way to honor Black History Month in the afternoon. Then a little bit of chaos ensued as night fell. Several different groups joined in large numbers. Those on the ground spotted what appears, from what we can tell, to be an Antifa flag. This happened north of DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C.
Fox's David Spunt. Meanwhile, some California churches opened their doors to worshipers after the state revised its guidelines for houses of prayer following a Supreme Court ruling that lifted a ban on indoor services during the coronavirus pandemic. Governor Gavin Newsom's office issued revised guidelines that limit attendance at indoor services in areas with substantial virus spread. The High Court said that the state couldn't continue a ban on indoor services, but it can limit attendance to 25% of the building's capacity and restrict singing inside. Plus, the most recent jobs report shows that positions held by women amount to a vast majority of those lost. The nation's new Treasury Secretary hopes the president's stimulus package will change that.
Secretary Janet Yellen said on CBS Face the Nation, President Biden's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan is geared to help all citizens that need it, but places emphasis on lifting additional burdens that women take on.
Getting children back into school, providing paid family and medical leave during this crisis so that women don't have to leave their jobs.
Yellen also says the president continues to look at who should qualify to get $1,400 stimulus checks and says he will negotiate with Congress to decide that.
Fox's Grinal Scott. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Rolling sound, quiet, and action.
The Ray Gibson Show. Starring Senator Mona Silva Tyron as the news anchor.
I'm Mona Silva Tyron, and I'll have your local news every morning. Life moves pretty fast, so stay with us to stay informed right here on The Point.
Also starring Jerry Roberts as the Better Business Training Guru.
Get out there and do something good today. Like listen to us, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m., where we go extra for you.
Produced by the real Joe Cruz. And your warm and intelligent host, Ray Gibson.
It's the Gibson Stream of Consciousness. All the players and all the games with cameos and calls from the most interesting people like you. We'll see and hear you right here on your talk radio superstation. This is The Point.
The Ray Gibson Show was filmed before a live Facebook audience.
Listen to The Point. Any speaker, anytime. Check us out on your FM radio at 93.3, 104.3 HD3, thepoint.gu, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and tune in. And announcing radio.com. Download the app and hear The Point. Get the latest news, sports, entertainment, and more. On demand. Your phone is digital. Your life is digital. And we are too. 93.3, The Point.
Great halftime show, and during the halftime show I was thinking about making some career decisions, and I thought maybe I would go undercover and try to infiltrate communist organizations either in the mainland or in Europe, and I have a two-step plan so that I can infiltrate communist organizations. I'm going to buy a copy of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, so that I can brush up on my cordiality, and then I'm going to shave off my mustache. And I should be able to blend right in with any communist cell anywhere you might run into one, right, Jose?
That's an ugly woman.
Yeah.
That's what they say in communist Russia.
Yeah.
No mustache.
All right. So good afternoon, Frenchie.
Good afternoon, Bob.
What can you tell me about the new comedy team of Sabina and Tello?
Well, Sabina, actually, another Joe mentioned my name when he was talking about Sabina. Sabina is on the far left of the Communist Party. She's a Trotskyist. So if you don't know who Trotsky was, you need to go back and Google it, and because I don't have that much time to explain that thing. But she's a Trotskyist. She's an anti-militarist. She belonged to several far-left groups, including the International Women Association Against Military Bases, and several other groups that are based in Denver. She has organized conferences for those groups at the UOG, where she was the hosting secretary. So this woman is a very dangerous woman, not only because of her agenda, but because she gives the impression of being that nice little auntie that bakes cookies for you, And
she doesn't have a mustache.
She doesn't have a mustache, and once in a while she puts a text here for saving the wild dogs and doing, feel-good issues. And she's a lot smarter than Katie Marsh because she's not associated.
Are you damning her with faint praise there, Frenchie? But go on with your story.
Well, you have to give praise where it's due.
I said faint praise, damning her with faint praise, but go on.
She's smarter because she's more deceitful. Katie Marsh, we knew she was a backer of the Underwood crowd and their little cottage industry of so-called independence, which is based on a bunch of malarkey. But Perez is a lot more dangerous. So that was my little apartheid. As far as the gentleman that made the comment, Christian, who now works for, what's the name of the other senator?
Tello.
Talina Nelson.
Talina Nelson, yeah.
I'm sorry, Shelton.
Yeah,
Christian
Nelson.
works for Shelton.
Yeah, Christian is a pretty nice guy. He's actually pretty smart, but he hangs with the wrong crowd. And he used to be kind of the right arm of Biscott Lee before she decided not to run again. So then he was recruited by Nelson then. So what I wanted to talk about is the two-tiers justice system, which was very obvious last week when the lawyer from the FBI that falsified documents for the FISA court and ruined the life of about half a dozen people was given a small slap on the hand by the federal judge who was Obama appointee, born in San Francisco, and who basically said, oh, well, he's already lost his job, that poor man, we don't want to give him more. And basically he got away with legal murder. And then at the same time, you see how General Flynn and several other people were treated, where basically their lives were ruined. It's the latest example of the two tiers of justice. And then you also have one thing which I think has been obvious the last 4 years is justice delayed. We have a special prosecutor supposed to investigate those things. Nothing is coming out. And for me, justice delay is justice denied. Because down the road, you'll hear the argument, well, that was a long time ago, who cares? And we care because if there is one thing that holds this country together is the rule of law. And if there is no rule of law, or if there is a perceived imbalance between how we apply the law, depending on which party the accused is from, then we have an issue. So I'm sure as a lawyer, you'll have something to say about that. And so the other thing I wanted to comment about was what another Joe, once again, talked about last Friday, but last Friday I was on my way to church when I heard the thing, so I couldn't call back. Another Joe is a very nice guy. He's basically a classic conservative. He has that let leave as long as you don't bother me or tell me what to do. The problem is that the other side doesn't work that way. The other side wants to tell you what to do and what to think and how to behave. And this is why in the military right now, we have those investigations of the National Guard before the inauguration. We have a stand down by the new Secretary of Defense that has been ordered to review the files of every members of the military. What the heck is this? Are we in the Soviet Union? Are we going to have military commissars behind every officer? It's becoming ridiculous. And we knew we were in trouble during the second mandate of Obama. There was really a purge of a lot of the high-ranking conservative officers, and they were replaced by social justice warriors in uniform. And, Mad Dog Mattis was a big deception the current Chief of Staff, General Mark Milley, came up and made some inflammatory statement after the election, and basically they slow walk the orders that the previous commander-in-chief, President Trump, gave, because they didn't want to follow his orders. And that is a major issue. We are going at warp speed towards a Chinese-style military. And if people don't understand the PLA, which is the People's Liberation Army, the PLA swears allegiance not to the Chinese people or the Chinese constitution, but to the Communist Party. They are basically a private army of the Communist Party. And if we are not careful, and there were several articles this weekend by retired officers that said exactly the same thing, which is, if we are not careful, we are arriving at a communist system where we're going to have to pledge allegiance not to the U.S. Constitution, but to the TNC. And that is very, very dangerous. Another thing has been that the professionalization, of the military has created more and more four-star generals. You know, we ended up World War II with four-star generals for all the armed forces. Last year we had 45. We had 18 in the Army, 3 in the Marine Corps, 9 in the Navy, 11 in the Air Force, 2 in the Space Force, and 2 in the Coast Guards. And we have a cast now of officers that owe their career officer, and they no longer represent the people in the United States. They represent their own career. And they are, and the last 4 years of the Obama administration, we've seen a very dangerous precedent, which was to eliminate with surreptitious accusation against conservative officers of people that were basically pushed to the side and replaced by political appointees. And I'm afraid we are on a very slippery slope. And as a person that was born in France, you know, we've seen this in the early 1900s, when we had a Secretary of Defense in France who was a Freemason, and he had files kept on Catholic officers, how often they went to Mass, and so on and so forth. Now, you might think that is a little ridiculous, but it has dire consequences. And when you hear John Brennan, who used to be the CIA chief, said that this administration is going to go after Christian and other white supremacists, you can start worrying, because guess where most of the white officers come from in the United States Armed Forces? They come from the South. And so what are we going to have? Now we have a Secretary of Defense who was confirmed by the Senate without opposition, and who basically owes his job to political statements. And he was really not like when he was at the Southern Command, and now he's in charge of the whole Defense Department. So we have a lot of problem. In France, when they were keeping those things, actually they approached a regiment commander, a colonel at the time, because they didn't see him go to church. Well, there was a reason. The man was a womanizer. He liked women. He didn't have time to go to church. He had too many women to bed. So they approached him and said, well, could you tell us who the Catholic officers are in your regiment? He said, no, I cannot say because I'm in the first row. That was not true. So they ruined his career. He ended up retiring as a colonel until World War I, when finally they had to recall him because they were in shortage of generals. So they made him a general, and Joffre actually gave him a promotion quite fast, and he ended up being the savior of Verdun, very famous French general named Pétain, and who was the savior of Verdun, and later, unfortunately, became known for being the chief of the Vichy government during World War II. But that shows you how dangerous the kind of steps that is being taken by the Bidet administration is absolutely should make the hair on the back of your head stand up.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty concerned about it, Frenchie, and I have mentioned similar things here in Tall Tales, and we've got to keep a close eye on that. So thanks for bringing that back to our attention. We'll keep an eye on it, okay?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, good talking to you, Frenchie.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, so I noticed another Joe climbed on the Ferris wheel and then decided to jump off.
He just had a quick question, which I could not answer, about was there a 5-star general in Eisenhower or something like that? But I haven't.
Yeah, and I think Frenchie's maybe a star short. Yeah, we had Bradley, Eisenhower, MacArthur, one from the Army Air Force, Nimitz, a couple from the, I think there maybe have been 7 5-stars, but there has not been a 5-star since World War II. A little historical footnote here, John Blackjack Pershing, who was the commander of American forces in Europe during World War I, was authorized to wear 7 stars, but he never wore more than 4.
His sleeves were not that long.
Well, he may have had Adam Schiff's disease. Adam Schiff, better known as Pencil Neck.
Pencil.
Yeah, and then in the history of the American military, we've had generals and admirals. We've only had 1 field marshal, and that was Douglas MacArthur. MacArthur retired from the Army as Army Chief of Staff, which is the top job in the U.S. Army. And then after that, he was, the U.S. took him on to be the commander of the Philippine forces, not American forces in the Philippines, but basically the Philippine Army. And MacArthur said, yeah, I'll do it, but, you know, I am Douglas MacArthur, so I can't let anybody outrank me. I've got to be a field marshal. So he was the only person that was ever a field marshal in the U.S. Army.
Interesting.
Interesting, but useless information. Okay, let's check in with Tim and tell us what interesting information he has for us today. Good afternoon, Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Boy, Frenchie's always a hard act to follow. A note to Frenchie, though, that all that stuff that you said is great stuff. If you could write that up for Jungle Watch and post it, because otherwise no one's gonna hear it other than the people that were listening just now, and even me. I have to go back and really, well, you know what I mean. It's pretty thick. There's a lot of stuff there.
Yes.
So Frenchie's a great blogger. So encouragement to everything he just said is very important. So put it on Jungle Watch, and we're still getting about 10,500 views a week. So that's a still pretty good clip. Anyway, I was just, of course, it caught my ear, listening to another Joe, and then you said if Tim is listening, maybe he can weigh in on this, this thing about the academy education. I don't mind saying, actually, it's not me saying at all. I want to refer everyone to a book. The title of the book is Asian Pacific Islander American Women, a Historical Anthology, and then a chapter called Chamorro Women and the Politics of Abortion in Guam, page 375. There's a whole chapter about Chamorro women and the politics of abortion in Guam. Vivian Dames is that how you say her last name? Dames.
I think it's appropriately Damas, but I think she pronounces it. I think she pronounces it Dames because it sounds a lot nicer.
Okay. But anyway, she is the author of that particular article. The article is almost all about Lou Leon Guerrero, and Vivian, the author, the quote unquote Lou Leon Guerrero attributes her becoming pro-choice to her Catholic education. And then it goes into her, I guess it's her cousin, Anita Areola, the other very prolific pro-abortion Chamorro woman. And they both went to academy, and they both attribute their being pro-abortion, really, to their academy education. So Joe wasn't far off the mark. There's a lot of stuff going on that it's very difficult to nail these things down. But when you have the person who's now the governor attributing and she's the most prolific abortion supporter in the history of Guam, and she's attributing her abortion stance to her Catholic education. Where did she get a Catholic education? Academy, Our Lady of Academy. So that's where that is. The governor herself is actually saying this. It's actually true, but Academy's not alone. 33%, a Pew Research poll from just about a couple years ago disclosed that 33% of Catholics will support abortion for any reason. 33%, and nearly 60% will support abortion. In the case of rape, incest, the typical stuff. So this whole thing, with picking on the Catholics as the reason why abortions can't happen in Guam is absolute trash. It's Catholics who support abortion to the tune of 60%, and a Catholic governor attributing her pro-abortion beliefs to her Catholic education. So this whole thing of drawing Catholics into this, it's just a straw man that the ACLU and God knows who else, wants to beat up on, because they don't have anybody else to beat up on. But the fact is that the ACLU should count the Catholics on their side. And I would warn Catholics, not to get drawn into this, because I'm sorry, but the numbers are not on our side. We elected Lou Leon Guerrero, and she did not hide, who she was, in terms of, that she was out to make sure that women could kill their babies. There was no secret about that. She's been on the front lines of that since 1990, and we voted her in. So shame on us, never mind the fact that 66% since 2008, when we were actually able to get records, 66% of abortions were on Chamorro babies. Shame on us. You want to kill. I would direct people to Jungle Watch, and then I'll just stop because I can get going here. But there's an article, "Why We Kill Our Children." Just Google "Why We Kill Our Children" on junglewatch.info, and the quote and the copy of the page in the book will come up. You can read it for yourself. Lou Leon Guerrero attributes her becoming pro-choice to her Catholic education, and you know what? The author of the article is not lying. That this is the Catholic education of today. Sorry, but it really is. This is why I didn't send my kids to Catholic school, and I don't recommend anybody else does, to be honest with you. Given the fact that our governor is a product of it. I'll stop there.
Well, very good information, Tim. Thank you very much for sharing that. And once again, Tim puts out the call if you want to make a point, if you want to have some influence, if you want to help people reach the right result, calling Tall Tales is a wonderful way to do it. Posting on Facebook on Tall Tales is also a great way to do it. But the really way to do it so that it's there for everybody in the entire world to see and it lasts forever is to go to junglewatch.info and post a comment there. You didn't even have to tell the world who you are. You could just put your wrap right on on Jungle Watch, and it'll be there forever, right, Tim?
10.5 thousand views per week, and as of today, 9.6 million views since July of 2013 when we started actually, talking about stuff that matters. So, is there? People are reading it, and it's this is where it can happen. So, Google "Why We Kill Our Children," junglewatch.info. It'll come right up, and you can read it for yourself.
Thanks again, Tim.
You got it. Thank you.
All right. Well, everything I ever needed to know about abortion, I learned in my Catholic education, said Governor Lulian Guerrero, who was identified as the first openly pro-abortion governor of Guam, right, Jose?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so it's about time for the seventh inning stretch, and after that I'm going to come back to Wolf versus the Vatican.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Half a day. This is Alicia Bloss from Security Title, reminding you that your 2020 property taxes are now due and payable. You may not know that you can pay your taxes online at pay.guam.gov. All you have to do is follow these simple steps. Register, log in, get a PIN, and pay. If you purchased a property after March 2nd, 2020, you will likely not receive a tax bill in your name, but you will still owe the tax. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Okay, seventh inning stretch, Wrigley Field in Chicago, and we come out of Wrigley Field and we go straight from Chicago to Rome, to the Vatican City. And a little bit of information about Vatican City. Vatican City is about 110 acres. I was there one time. It's surrounded by 20-foot stone walls, but you can walk all the way around Vatican City. You can do it in maybe 25 minutes or so. You can walk all the way around Vatican City. So it's the name of it is Vatican City, but it's actually a country. It's as much of a country as Russia or China or Canada or the United States is. It's a sovereign nation recognized by the international community as a sovereign nation. It has its own particular government structure. It is a monarchy, of course. The monarch is called the Pope, but it has all the functions of a small country, Swiss Guard or the Army, etc. And it enters into treaties with other countries. The development of Vatican City is pretty interesting. It goes way back to something called the Papal States, when a large chunk of Italy were controlled by the Pope. The Papal States lost out to the government of Italy, and then in the Treaty of Lateran, Vatican City was created as a separate sovereign, which it remains today. So I've got an article here. It's entitled, Vatican Removed as Defendant in Guam Clergy Sex Abuse Case. The nephew of former Guam Archbishop Anthony Apparon removed the Holy See, or the Vatican, from the list of defendants in his clergy sex abuse case. Mark Apparon, through attorney Delia Lujan Wolf, filed a notice of voluntary dismissal without prejudice of all claims against defendant Holy See, State of the Vatican City, its instrumentalities, or agents. A dismissal without prejudice means the matter is not dismissed forever and can be brought to court again. Mark Apperon's claim against other defendants are not dismissed, he said in his January 21 court filing. His claims against the Archdiocese of Agana, Anthony Apperon, the Capuchin Franciscans, and others remain. Mark Apperon accused his uncle, former Archbishop Anthony Apperon, of raping him in the bathroom of the Chancery office around 1989 or 1990, when the nephew was 15 or 16 years old. He filed his original lawsuit in 2018. A Vatican tribunal upheld a decision finding Anthony Apperon guilty of sexual abuse of minors, stripped him of his title as Archbishop. Anthony Apperon still faces civil lawsuits. In January 2019, Mark Apperon and two other defendants amended their initial clergy abuse lawsuits to add the Holy See as a defendant. At the time, the defendants, through their attorneys, said no person or organization has more information or knowledge about serial child abuse than the Holy See, and to date it has not been held to account. So the rest is more of the sordid history of Anthony Apperon. Going on, the District Court of Guam wrote a letter to the U.S. Department of State seeking help on service of process on the Holy See, with regard to the case that the plaintiff filed. The request was made pursuant to the U.S. Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, the court stated. The DHL package of documents addressed to the Holy See in July 2020 was refused delivery. The plaintiff DM asked the court to dispatch the documents by an alternative means of service. The District Court of Guam's clerk wrote December 30, 2020 requests the U.S. Department of State to send Holy See copies of First Amendment complaint in English, Italian, and Latin, along with 10 other document sets. There was no further development of the matters as of February 1st. District Court Chief Judge Francis Gatewood on February 1 issued multiple orders seeking at least 5 clergy sex abuse plaintiffs to file under seal a disclosure statement about their identity. The judge said the court recognizes the balance between a party's need for anonymity and the interest weighing in favor of Wolfen's judicial proceedings may change as litigation proceedings. Anyhow, so that's where the case stalled, that it was apparently very difficult to bring personal service on officials at the Vatican. You are able to serve a plaintiff is able to serve a foreign country with process from an American federal court, but it ain't easy. So that's perhaps the reason that the plaintiff dismissed the case, not wanting to get tied up in too much prolonged effort into something of that nature. But in addition to that, I have read some cases dealing with attempts to sue the Vatican, and you'd start out and you'd think, well, you can't sue the Vatican because sovereign immunity. It is sovereign, it is immune. That's not the reason that it's hard to get a judgment against the Vatican for misconduct of priests. And the reason that courts have stated is that in order for the Vatican, or in order for the principle to be liable under the doctrine of respondeat superior, which means the superior responds for the delegate, you have to be able to show that priests are employees of the Vatican. And frankly, they're not. If you understand the structure of the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church puts high value on what's called subsidiarity. So each diocese is almost a government unto itself. And there's a relationship with the Vatican, but people who work for a diocese don't necessarily work for the Vatican. So suing the Vatican sounds good. You know, everybody's seen these documentaries on TV that the Vatican has these huge archives of all kinds of really tantalizing secret information, etc. But it's not easy. So that's Delia Wolf, and the case was dismissed without prejudice, which means that she could try again later on. Now, when I said Wolf versus the Vatican, you probably thought, are we going back to the port again? But this is not Warren Wolf, the wolf at the Superior Court who can fix everything, just like the wolf in the movie Pulp Fiction. Different wolf. Okay, going on to commission versus governor. Last Friday, this is Lee Weber's February 8 column. Last Friday, this newspaper ran a number of stories about drug methamphetamine and the impact it's having on our small island. The lives and families that are being destroyed by the lack of adequate law enforcement needed to properly deal with the scourge. Those of you who are old enough to likely recall some 46 years ago when the heroin trade was running rampant on Guam, much as the methamphetamine trade is doing today. I remember. You may recall that we had some 30-plus homicides in 1 year as the heroin dealers battled for turf and the havoc that impacted families and the community at large. People were actually afraid to go out at night, fearing they would get caught in a crossfire between rival dealers. That historic time on our island resulted in the death of a DE agent, Larry, his last name will come back to me. His name is on the memorial down at the old police headquarters in the Ganya.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And as mentioned earlier, some 30-plus homicides. There were a number of pieces of information in this paper that caught my attention. The first was a story involving Lovelia Mendoza, a 38-year-old convicted methamphetamine dealer who claims to have started her methamphetamine habit at the age of 12. Wow. That places the beginning of her use some 26 years ago or in 1995. Mendoza was recently in federal court testifying against a former associate, Mark Mayo, who, based on the story, was one of her dealers. That means that the Guam Police Department and the Department of Customs and Quarantines have been dealing with this issue for at least that many years. It also means that our elected officials on the island have known about the problem for at least that long, likely longer. In the same edition of the paper, Vincent S.N. Paris of the Department of Customs and Quarantine said that during the year 2020, the department has managed to intercept 100 pounds of methamphetamine. They managed to accomplish this with antiquated equipment and roughly 50% of the number of officers they had prior to 2001. Couple this with the reality that the Guam Police Department is undermanned, and it raises some very ugly questions about the people running the government on our island. We live in a small place in which most of us are in some way or another related to someone else we know or consider family. That has some wonderful and, quite frankly, some potentially very evil sides to it. These drug problems really need to be placed on an agenda that impacts each and every one of us, because no matter how you view it, they will impact you whether you want them to or not. Not properly staffing police and customs agency is simply wrong. Now, he says it also begs the question. It doesn't beg the question. Prompts the question as to why they haven't been properly staffed and why that has been allowed to continue for this many years. Who is making those decisions and why are they making them? Once again, why are elected officials working so darn hard on abortions like Lou and Jane and not getting our sorely needed medical examiner? The last medical examiner resigned some 4 years ago. And here's the punchline of Lee's column. The island needs an elected police commission and commissioner who are not beholden to anyone in political office. This commission and commissioner need to oversee all law enforcement functions on island, have teeth necessary to take tough action when and where necessary to protect families that is adversely affecting our entire community. Stay vigilant, folks, and hold your elected officials' feet to the fire on this issue. Well, he makes a good point. Some cities do have a police commission. Some cities, the mayor appoints the police commission. Some places they're elected. They choose the chief of police who organizes his department. Now, once upon a time, we had a Department of Public Safety and a director of public safety. And there were three departments in that agency. There was the Guam Police Department, the Department of Corrections, and the Guam Fire Department, all in the Department of Public Safety, all under the same commissioner. Unfortunately, the last commissioner, or the last director, was Judith Guthertz. After a few years of Judith Guthertz, the law was changed to do away with that position, and the three departments were sent off on their own. So if you stop and think about it a little bit, we always wonder who the chief of police responds to. And my favorite story goes back to the Camacho administration, where the governor's wife took 3 police officers with her to London to pick up her children from college. 3 police officers on the payroll during huge amounts of overtime.
Camacho or Calvo?
I'm sorry. It was, Calvo. I'm sorry. It was Calvo, yeah.
Eddie Calvo.
Eddie Calvo, yeah. It was Calvo. So this drew an awful lot of print in the news stories, on TV. I talked about it on Tall Tales. And the chief of police at that time, J.I. Cruz, came out and said that he was required by law to provide police protection for the governor, the lieutenant governor, and their families. That was a lie. And I called him on the lie, proved it was a lie, challenged him to clear the record, and he never did. And again, I speculate that the reason that he said that, he's trying to cover for the governor. The governor took a lot of heat on that, which is right. So when the governor appoints the chief of police and he's confirmed by the legislature, and as Weber points out here, given all of the interconnections here on the island, and given the tension that exists every day between familial allegiance to meritocracy, are we ever going to be able to get the kind of service from our police department that we deserve from a chief that's appointed by the governor, confirmed by the legislature? Yeah, I'm going to point out what my own personal exception is. That's Scamby. Scamby was one of those guys, was a fortunate guy that made his bones off island in law enforcement in the Marine Corps. So he didn't have to come up through the Guam Police Department, going through all of the allegiances and compromises that entails before he was the chief of police. But that doesn't happen very often. Most chiefs arise through the department, and by the time they get to be chief, they're pretty well compromised internally, if not externally. So maybe we should look at something different. I've often wondered, maybe what we need is an island sheriff. Elect the sheriff, like we do in most of the counties in the United States, to have a professional law enforcement community under the sheriff, but the sheriff is responsible to the people and not to the governor. Or maybe a police commission like Lee Weber's idea here. But I'm just not really happy that our police department under the current system is functioning as well as it should, sometimes functioning very well at all. So good call, Emily. Okay, let's head for Churchill Downs and see what's going on there at the starting gate.
Looking for a place to celebrate this Valentine's Day? Treat your special someone to Mezcla Bistro in Hagåtña. Enjoy their Sweethearts menu that comes with complimentary sparkling wine, house wine, or draft beer, and a choice of 3 tantalizing set menus created by Master Chef Peter Dueñas, and an irresistible warm melting chocolate lava cake with creamy vanilla ice cream. Let Mezcla serve you up a memorable evening with the true taste of Guam. Call Mezcla at 479-2652 or 3. Limited seating available.
Okay, Google. Hey, Siri. Hi, Bixby.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Open the Point app. Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations, check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on the App Store and Google Play, or go to thepoint.gu.
Okay, so here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, the home stretch here on Tall Tales. And the next item on the card is Youth versus Wisdom. And this is a column that ran in the Post over the signature of Agarin Iriarte. He's from the village of Jigo and is currently pursuing his master's degree in Sustainability Management from American University in Washington. He aims to return to Guam in the near future to help build a more sustainable island. I have to admit a bias here. Whenever I see the word sustainability, I'm on guard, because what it means is here comes another environmental wacko. We've got to stop using fossil fuel. We've got to go to renewable energy. We've got to recycle and on and on and on and on. Well, how long will it take us to do that? Oh, it's not going to take us long at all. We've got to do it now. We've got to save our planet. So sustainability, and what's his other title here?
Fasten your seatbelt.
Yeah, sustainability is like, in the university context, is like seeing the name of a course that ends in the word studies. And what it means is this is not education, this is indoctrination. Ethnic studies, American studies. First time I heard the phrase American studies, I thought, man, if I were going to go to college, that sounds like something I'd really like to study. American history and American heroes, etc. No, that's not what it's about. It's about what a horrible country the United States of America is. That's American studies. Okay, so this is what Agarin says. Growing up, my parents were vociferous about energy efficiency. From simple measures like turning off lights when not in use to regulating when we use air conditioning, we did our best as a family to be fiscally responsible with our energy usage. Every day, thousands of families of Guam are having these conversations with their kids as they juggle a growing list of concerns. Conversations like this aren't new, as most families on island suffer from some degree of energy insecurity. Besides the privileged few, included our elected CCU members, hey, Agarin, don't be taking any shots at CCU members. I got that one covered.
That's your job.
Yeah. Most families would say their lack of access, they lack access to affordable energy. The announcement by the Guam Power Authority and its board, the Consolidated Commission on Utilities, to increase every customer's power bill by a staggering 30% is ill-timed at best and negligent at worst, and wrong besides that. So if you're going to do this stuff, Agarin, you got to be accurate. Not increasing the bill by 30%, increasing the fuel adjustment charge by 30%. I think maybe it might increase the average bill by 10%. So you got to be accurate about these things. You got to not only mean what you say. I mean, not only you mean what you say, but you got to say what you mean too. The decision comes when news reports of generous pay raises for top manager last year are still fresh in the minds of ratepayers. It was 2018, not last year, Agarin, but that's all right. When energy prices rise, families experience a significant decrease in spendable budget. Well, this guy must be an economist. Faced with harsh choices between paying for energy and other basic needs, renewable energy technologies are key to unlocking economic opportunities while putting money back into the hands of our families. But this too has drawn the ire of utility officials who fear a decentralized grid will hurt their bottom line and future pay raises. Yeah. Any business, of course, any business that has an infrastructure would, at the drop of a hat, allow a potential competitor to use the infrastructure for free to compete with it. And that's what we're talking about here. In the past 2 years, the legislature introduced a number of measures to scale renewable energy technologies. All but one have failed, and all were unanimously opposed by its GPA and CCU leaders, which means they had to be wrong. For over a decade, the price of renewables has fallen relative to the price of fossil fuels. Across the United States, governments at the local and federal level are harnessing the power of clean energy to satisfy economic concerns as well as health and environmental issues. As the Biden administration begins to clamp down on fossil fuels and aims to create an economy built on clean energy and net emissions, where does that leave Guam? I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to do my reconstruction of history, Jose. We're going to turn the clock back to 1908. Are you ready? Honk the horn just so people know I'm kidding here. Okay, it's 1908. Henry Ford invented the Model T Ford. He didn't invent assembly line mass production, but he really capitalized on it. So he was able to build a cheap automobile that could be afforded, almost anyone could afford. And between 1908 and 1927, he built 15 million of those things. And it literally changed the world. So people soon caught on, man, automobiles, especially those Model T Fords, are so much better than horses and buggies. First of all, if you drive a car down the street, it doesn't make a mess on the road. The Machinic, Model T Ford. Cleaner, right? Much better for the environment. You don't have
bad exhaust.
Yeah, you don't have all that horse manure to dispose of. So it was cleaner. It was much more convenient, and in a sense, it was cheaper. So as soon as people saw the superiority of the Model T Ford, you know what they did? That very year, I think it was 1910 or 11, when it became clear to everyone that a Model T Ford was far superior to horses, there was a mass slaughter of horses. Every horse in the United States was killed in a matter of 1 month. They just took them all out and shot them and killed them and buried them because the Model T Ford was so much better, right? And as if by magic, everyone was able to jump in a Model T Ford and drive away. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to... it looks like another Joe. Call back on Monday. We'll talk to you then. Okay, that's it for today. See you on Monday.
is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A big Buccaneer win. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeating the Kansas City Chiefs 31-9 in Super Bowl 55 on Sunday. Named MVP, Buccaneers quarterback Tom Brady connected with tight end Rob Gronkowski for 2 touchdown passes, including this 17-yard pass in the second quarter.
Brady play action. Looking. Third option. End zone. Caught! Gronkowski again with the touchdown.
Sound courtesy of CBS Sports. Brady finished the night with 201 passing yards and 3 touchdown passes. The Super Bowl win is the second in franchise history for Tampa Bay and their first in 18 years. And in a pregame interview with CBS News, President Biden spoke on the highly debated topic of reopening schools.
I think about the price so many of my grandkids and your kids are going to pay for not having had the chance to finish whatever it was. That graduation where you didn't get to walk across the stage. I think they're going through a lot, these kids.
The safe and complete reopening of schools, even as the fight against coronavirus continues, is something that President Biden promised to focus on during his first 100 days in office. Plus, the number 3 Republican in the House survived a bid to oust her from GOP leadership.
Wyoming Congresswoman Liz Cheney said on Fox News Sunday she is resisting continued calls for her resignation. She added the vote to keep her in a leadership role shows her the GOP still has its traditional values.
We are the party of Lincoln. We are not the party of QAnon or anti-Semitism or Holocaust deniers or white supremacy or conspiracy theories. That's not who we are.
While impeachment plays out this week in the Senate, Cheney says ongoing investigations will uncover who had a role in the Capitol riot of January 6th.
Fox's Grenal Scott. America is listening to Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Stay on top of the latest news and information from Fox News. Listen and download the Fox News Hourly Update on your time. The trending stories you need anytime you want it. Listen and download now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Subscribe and listen to the Trey Gowdy Podcast.
It skews our thinking when all we see on television or read online or in papers or experience on social media is negative. It